Life does not break people suddenly. It wears them down quietly over time. One disappointment after another, one unexpected loss. One moment where things do not go as planned, pressure builds. Stress accumulates, and eventually something inside feels like it snaps. Not because you are weak, but because your mind was never taught how to carry weight. Most people believe they break because life is too hard. The truth is more precise. People break when their inner systems are untrained for prolonged stress, uncertainty, and emotional pain. Life applies pressure. The untrained mind absorbs it directly. The trained mind distributes it. This is the difference. Life will test everyone. No one is exempt. Careers stall. Relationships end. Health changes. Plans fall apart. Expectations collapse. These events are not failures. They are inevitabilities. The problem is not that these things happen. The problem is how the mind responds when they do. An untrained mind personalizes pain. It interprets difficulty as meaning. This is happening because I am failing. This hurts because I am not enough. This keeps happening because something is wrong with me. These interpretations turn pain into identity. Pain becomes who you are instead of something you are experiencing. This is how life breaks the untrained mind. Not through events alone, but through the stories the mind tells about those events. The mind is a meaning-making machine. When something painful happens, it immediately looks for explanation. If no healthy framework exists, it fills the gap with self-blame, fear, and hopelessness. The mind would rather believe something negative than sit in uncertainty. Uncertainty feels dangerous to the nervous system, so the mind creates certainty even if it hurts. This is why people spiral after setbacks. One failure becomes proof of lifelong inadequacy. One loss becomes evidence that nothing lasts. One rejection becomes confirmation that they are unworthy. These conclusions feel true because they are emotionally charged. Emotion convinces the mind. Life also breaks the untrained mind through accumulation. Stress that is not released builds. Emotions that are not processed linger. Grief that is not felt hardens. Over time, the system becomes overloaded. Then something small triggers a disproportionate reaction. People say, "I do not know why this broke me." It was not this moment. It was everything before it. The untrained mind does not know how to offload emotional weight. It carries everything internally. It replays memories, worries about the future, and criticizes itself constantly. This creates chronic tension. Chronic tension narrows perspective. When perspective narrows, options disappear. Everything feels final, permanent, and overwhelming. This is when people feel trapped inside their own thoughts. Life also breaks the untrained mind because it confuses emotion with truth. When you feel hopeless, the mind says, "This is reality." When you feel exhausted, the mind says you will never recover. When you feel alone, the mind says you always will be. Feelings become facts. This fusion is dangerous. Emotions are temporary signals. The untrained mind treats them as conclusions. This makes pain feel endless. Another reason life breaks the untrained mind is identity attachment. Many people tie their sense of self to roles, outcomes, or external stability. Career, relationship, health routine. When these change, identity collapses. Who am I if this is gone? Without internal grounding, external loss feels like internal destruction. Life also applies pressure through unpredictability. The untrained mind seeks control. It wants guarantees, timelines, and certainty. Life offers none. When control is lost, anxiety rises. Anxiety seeks relief through rumination. Rumination feels like problem solving, but produces no solutions. It only deepens fatigue. The untrained mind also lacks boundaries. It absorbs the emotions of others. It internalizes external chaos. News, conflict, opinions, expectations all pile on. Without mental boundaries, everything becomes personal. This creates emotional overwhelm. Life breaks the untrained mind because it was never taught how to pause. Modern culture rewards constant movement, productivity, and distraction. Stillness feels uncomfortable, but stillness is where processing happens. Without it, the mind never resets. Eventually, it collapses. Collapse does not always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like numbness, loss of motivation, constant irritation, mental fog, emotional withdrawal. These are not signs of failure. They are signs of overload. The mind is asking for training. Training does not mean toughness or suppression. Suppression stores pressure. Training means learning how to regulate, interpret, and respond to experience wisely. The trained mind does not avoid pain. It processes it. It does not deny difficulty. It contextualizes it. It does not eliminate emotion. It contains it. This containment is what prevents breaking. A trained mind understands that pain is part of life, but suffering is optional. Suffering is what happens when pain is resisted, misinterpreted, or personalized. Pain passes. Stories linger. The untrained mind believes pain means something is wrong. The trained mind sees pain as information. Information can be worked with. Life also breaks the untrained mind because it expects strength to mean constant resilience. No one can be resilient all the time. Strength includes rest, reflection, and recovery. The untrained mind pushes until it collapses. The trained mind paces itself. Pacing preserves capacity. Another key difference is self-relationship. When life gets hard, the untrained mind turns against itself. Harsh inner dialogue, blame, and criticism appear. This internal attack doubles the damage. The trained mind becomes supportive during difficulty. Support accelerates recovery. Life will challenge you. That is unavoidable. But being broken by those challenges is not inevitable. Breaking happens when the mind lacks tools, lacks perspective, and lacks regulation. This audiobook exists to change that. You will not learn how to avoid pain. You will learn how to carry it without losing yourself. You will not learn how to control life. You will learn how to control your inner response. That control is everything. When your mind is trained, setbacks become manageable. Loss becomes survivable. Pressure becomes tolerable. Even in dark moments, you remain intact. This is not because you are stronger than others. It is because you are prepared. Preparation is the difference between bending and breaking. In the next part, you will learn what actually happens inside the mind during mental collapse, and why understanding this process gives you back control. This is where awareness replaces confusion, and where strength begins to rebuild. Mental collapse does not arrive as a single moment. It unfolds in stages. It begins quietly long before it becomes visible. By the time someone says, "I cannot handle this anymore," the system has been overwhelmed for a long time. Understanding how this collapse happens is not about diagnosing weakness. It is about recognizing patterns so control can be restored before the breaking point. Pressure alone does not cause collapse. Pressure reveals what has not been processed, regulated, or released. The mind is designed to handle short bursts of stress followed by recovery. Modern life rarely offers recovery. Stress becomes constant. The nervous system stays activated. Over time, the mind loses flexibility. It becomes rigid, repetitive, and exhausted. This is the foundation of collapse. The first stage of mental collapse is overload. Overload happens when demands exceed emotional and cognitive capacity. Work expectations, responsibilities, uncertainty, and personal challenges stack without adequate rest or processing. The mind begins to multitask, constantly jumping from one concern to another. Attention becomes fragmented. Fragmented attention weakens clarity. When clarity weakens, decisions feel harder. When decisions feel harder, confidence drops. This creates mental friction. Everything feels heavier than it should. At this stage, many people push harder. They believe effort will solve the problem. They ignore early signals like irritability, poor sleep tension, and emotional numbness. These signals are not flaws. They are warnings. Ignoring warnings accelerates collapse. The second stage is emotional compression. Emotions are felt, but not processed. There is no time to feel frustration, grief, disappointment, or fear. The mind keeps moving forward. Emotions are compressed beneath the surface. Compressed emotion does not disappear. It stores. Stored emotion increases baseline tension. The nervous system becomes hyper-reactive. Small stressors trigger outsized reactions. People say, "I do not know why this upset me so much." The reason is accumulation. The third stage is cognitive narrowing. Under sustained pressure, the mind simplifies reality. It loses nuance. Thinking becomes black and white. Everything feels urgent, permanent, and personal. The mind stops exploring options and starts looping the same thoughts. This is where rumination begins. Rumination feels like thinking, but it produces no movement. The mind circles the same fears, questions, and regrets. This repetition exhausts mental resources. Exhaustion reduces resilience. The fourth stage is identity threat. Under pressure, people begin to question their worth, competence, or future. They stop saying this situation is hard and start saying I am failing. Identity becomes fused with circumstances. This fusion makes pain feel existential. When identity is threatened, the nervous system reacts as if survival is at stake. Fight, flight, or freeze responses dominate. Calm thinking becomes inaccessible. The fifth stage is loss of internal trust. The person no longer trusts their judgment, emotions, or decisions. Everything feels uncertain. They seek reassurance constantly or withdraw entirely. This loss of trust is destabilizing. Without self-trust, every choice feels risky. Avoidance increases. Motivation drops. Confidence erodes. The sixth stage is emotional shutdown or overwhelm. Some people collapse inward, becoming numb, disconnected, and flat. Others collapse outward, becoming reactive, anxious, or explosive. Both are signs of the same problem. The system is overloaded. Mental collapse is not a sign of weakness. It is a predictable outcome of sustained pressure without regulation. The mind and nervous system have limits. When those limits are exceeded, something gives understanding. This removes shame. Shame keeps people stuck. Understanding creates agency. One of the most important truths is this: collapse does not mean you are broken. It means your system is asking for a different way of operating. Pressure exposes gaps in regulation, not defects in character. Another critical insight is that collapse often happens when people are still functioning externally. They are showing up, working, caring, and performing while internally deteriorating. This disconnect makes collapse confusing and frightening. People say, "I do not understand why I feel like this." The answer is not found in one event. It is found in the pattern. Mental collapse is also intensified by lack of emotional language. Many people cannot name what they feel. They sense distress but cannot articulate it. This creates internal confusion. Confusion amplifies fear. Fear accelerates collapse. Another factor is isolation. Pressure feels heavier when carried alone. Even supportive people can feel distant when someone does not know how to express what they are experiencing. Isolation increases kernel load. Mental collapse is also reinforced by cultural messaging. Messages that say, "Keep pushing, be strong, do not stop now," encourage suppression. Suppression delays collapse, but intensifies it. What is delayed is amplified. The mind also collapses when meaning is lost. When effort no longer feels connected to purpose, motivation collapses. Without meaning, pressure feels pointless. Pointlessness drains energy quickly. Understanding mental collapse also means recognizing that control is not lost all at once. It erodes gradually. Each ignored signal, each unprocessed emotion, each night of poor rest weakens the system slightly. Then, one day it feels like everything falls apart. In reality, it was falling apart quietly for a long time. The good news is this: what collapses can be rebuilt. Mental collapse follows patterns. Recovery follows patterns too. Recovery begins with awareness. When you understand what is happening inside you, stop fighting yourself. You stop asking what is wrong with me and start asking what does my system need. This question changes everything. Recovery does not require fixing your entire life at once. It requires stabilizing the nervous system, restoring trust and rebuilding capacity gradually. You cannot think your way out of collapse. Thinking is part of the overloaded system. You must regulate first. Regulation restores access to thinking. Another important realization is that collapse does not erase strength. Strength is still there. It is simply inaccessible under overload. When pressure is reduced and regulation restored, strength returns. You are not starting from zero. Understanding mental collapse also helps you recognize early signs in the future. You learn to respond sooner. You pace yourself. You process emotion as it arises. Prevention becomes possible. This understanding also builds compassion. You see others' reactions differently. You recognize overload rather than malice. This does not excuse harmful behavior, but it changes how you internalize it. Compassion reduces secondary suffering. Mental collapse is not a personal failure. It is a system failure. And systems can be redesigned. This audiobook is about redesigning your inner system so life does not break you when pressure rises. In the next part, you will learn how pain hijacks your thoughts and why the mind turns against itself during hardship. Understanding this process will give you back control where it feels most lost. This is where clarity begins to replace overwhelm and where rebuilding truly starts. Pain changes the way the mind works. Not because you are weak, but because pain is a powerful signal to the nervous system. When pain appears, whether emotional, physical, or psychological, the mind shifts priorities. Survival becomes more important than clarity. Protection becomes more important than accuracy. This is how pain hijacks your thoughts. Pain narrows attention. It pulls focus inward and forward at the same time. Inward toward what hurts and forward toward what might hurt next. This narrowing is meant to keep you safe. But when pain is emotional and prolonged, this narrowing traps the mind. The mind begins to revolve around the pain. When pain is present, the brain searches for meaning. It asks, why did this happen? What does this mean? And what does this say about me? These questions feel urgent. The mind believes that if it can explain the pain, it can control it. But pain is not always logical. When explanations are not clear, the mind fills the gap with assumptions. These assumptions are often negative, because negative explanations feel more believable when you are hurting. Pain makes pessimism feel realistic. This is the first hijack. Interpretation becomes distorted. Neutral events feel threatening. Uncertainty feels dangerous. The mind begins to see patterns of failure, loss, or rejection everywhere. This distortion is not intentional. It is the brain prioritizing threat detection over balanced evaluation. Pain also amplifies memory. The mind recalls past failures, disappointments, and losses more easily when you are hurting. This happens because pain activates emotional memory networks. The brain pulls similar emotional experiences to help predict outcomes. The problem is that memory is selective. The mind does not replay moments of resilience, success, or recovery with the same intensity. It replays what hurt. This creates the illusion that pain is the dominant theme of your life. It is not, but it feels that way when the mind is hijacked. Pain also accelerates inner dialogue. Thoughts become louder, faster, and more repetitive. The mind narrates constantly. What if this never gets better? What if I cannot handle this? What if this ruins everything? These thoughts feel intrusive because they are driven by emotion, not logic. Emotion pushes thought. Another way pain hijacks the mind is through urgency. Pain demands relief. The mind wants the discomfort to stop immediately. This urgency pushes the mind to search for quick answers, quick decisions, and quick escapes. Urgency reduces wisdom. Under urgency, people make decisions they later regret. They quit prematurely, lash out, withdraw, or numb themselves. These behaviors are attempts to escape pain, not resolve it. Pain also hijacks thought by personalizing experience. The mind shifts from "this hurts" to I am broken, from this is difficult to I cannot handle life. This personalization turns temporary pain into a permanent identity. Identity-based pain is much harder to release. When pain becomes who you are, rather than what you feel, hope collapses. Another critical hijack is comparison. Pain makes you compare your inside to others' outside. You see others moving forward while you feel stuck. This comparison deepens shame. Shame silences support. Silence increases isolation. Pain also disrupts time perception. The future feels empty or threatening. The past feels full of regret. The present feels unbearable. This distortion makes pain feel endless. But pain always changes. It never stays static. The mind hijacked by pain cannot see this. Pain also weakens boundaries. You absorb negativity more easily. Critical comments hit harder. Stress feels heavier. The mind lacks filters. This sensitivity is not weakness. It is a sign of overload. Pain hijacks thought further by collapsing options. When you are hurting, it feels like there are only two choices: escape or endure. The mind cannot see creative solutions. It becomes rigid. Rigidity increases suffering. Another important hijack is self-attack. The mind turns inward and blames. It believes criticism will motivate change. In reality, criticism increases stress and deepens pain. The mind becomes both the source of pain and the weapon against itself. This internal conflict drains energy rapidly. Pain also interferes with trust. You stop trusting yourself, your decisions, and your emotions. Doubt spreads. Every thought is questioned except the negative ones which feel convincing. This imbalance creates paralysis. Understanding how pain hijacks your thoughts is essential because it allows separation. You stop believing that every painful thought is true. You recognize that pain is influencing perception. This recognition creates distance. Distance restores choice. You begin to say, "This is pain speaking, not reality." This simple shift weakens the hijack. Another crucial understanding is that pain demands presence, not analysis. The mind tries to think its way out of pain. Pain requires feeling, processing, and regulation. Thinking alone keeps pain active. Processing allows it to move. Pain also wants safety. When the nervous system feels safe, pain becomes tolerable. Without safety, pain feels overwhelming. Creating safety internally through breath posture and reassurance reduces intensity. The mind follows the body. Another powerful antidote to hijacking is grounding. Grounding pulls attention out of the loop and into the present. Pain exists, but it no longer dominates awareness. Dominance is what makes pain unbearable. Pain also loses power when it is named accurately. You identify what hurts without exaggeration. This is sadness, not despair, frustration, not failure, fear, not danger. Precision reduces intensity. Understanding the hijack also builds compassion. You stop judging yourself for how you think when you are hurting. You realize that these patterns are biological, not moral. Compassion reduces secondary pain. Secondary pain is the suffering added by self-judgment. Pain hijacks thoughts, but it does not own them. You can learn to notice the hijack early and intervene gently. Intervention does not mean stopping pain. It means preventing pain from becoming identity. This is a critical distinction. Pain is part of life. Identity-based suffering is optional. In the next part, you will learn how to regain control when everything feels overwhelming. You will learn how to stabilize your inner world even when pain is present. This is where agency returns, and where healing begins to feel possible again. There are moments in life when everything feels like too much. Thoughts race, emotions collide, and even simple decisions feel impossible. Overwhelm is not just stress. It is the feeling of being mentally flooded with no clear way out. When overwhelm takes over, people often believe they have lost control permanently. They have not. Overwhelm is not the absence of control. It is the absence of regulation. When everything feels overwhelming, the nervous system is overloaded. The mind is receiving more input than it can process. Pressure, emotion, uncertainty, and responsibility pile up until the system cannot organize experience effectively. The first and most important truth is this: you cannot think your way out of overwhelm. Trying to solve overwhelm with more thinking increases the load. Control must be regained from the ground up, not from the top down. Regaining control begins with slowing the system. Overwhelm accelerates everything. Thoughts speed up breathing, shortens muscles tense, and attention fragments. The mind believes speed will solve the problem. In reality, speed deepens it. Slowing down is not giving up. It is regaining authority. The fastest way to slow the system is through the body. When the body calms, the mind follows. You lengthen your breath, soften your posture, and ground your attention in physical sensation. This signals safety to the nervous system. Safety is what allows regulation to return. Once the body begins to settle, the flood of thoughts loses intensity. They may still be present, but they no longer feel unstoppable. The next step is containment. Overwhelm feels endless because everything blends together. You contain experience by narrowing focus intentionally. You stop trying to handle everything at once. You choose one small, manageable action. Containment creates boundaries. Boundaries reduce chaos. You remind yourself that you do not need to solve your entire life right now. You only need to stabilize the moment you are in. This shift removes impossible expectations. Impossible expectations fuel overwhelm. Regaining control also means shifting from outcome focus to process focus. Overwhelm thrives when you are focused on future consequences. What if this fails? What if I cannot handle this? What if everything falls apart? You bring attention back to what can be done now. Now is manageable. The mind overwhelmed by possibility returns to clarity through presence. Another critical step is simplifying decisions. Overwhelm creates decision fatigue. You reduce choices temporarily. Fewer decisions mean less load. You postpone non-essential decisions without guilt. Postponement is strategic, not avoidant. Regaining control also involves emotional permission. Overwhelm is often intensified by resistance. You tell yourself you should not feel this way. This internal argument adds pressure. Permission reduces resistance. You allow the feeling to exist without judging it. This does not mean you like it. It means you stop fighting it. Fighting emotion keeps it active. Another powerful step is naming the experience accurately. You say this is overwhelm, not failure. This is stress, not weakness. Language matters. Accurate language calms the mind. Mislabeling amplifies distress. Regaining control also requires externalizing load. Overwhelm feels heavier when carried internally. You write things down, speak them aloud, or share them safely. Externalizing organizes chaos. What is named can be managed. Another essential step is restoring rhythm. Overwhelm disrupts routine sleep, eating, movement, and rest. You restore simple rhythms. Regular meals, consistent sleep, small movement. These stabilize the nervous system. Stability creates capacity. Regaining control also means reducing stimulation. When overwhelmed, you limit exposure to noise screens, conflict, and information. Less input allows processing. Silence is restorative. Another important practice is self-reassurance. Overwhelm triggers fear. Fear tells you this will never end. You counter this gently. You remind yourself that overwhelm is a state, not a permanent condition. States change. This reminder reduces panic. Regaining control also involves prioritizing recovery over performance. Overwhelmed minds try to push through. Pushing deepens collapse. Recovery restores function. Rest is not laziness. It is regulation. Another critical aspect is breaking isolation. Overwhelm thrives in silence. You do not need solutions from others. You need connection. Being seen reduces load. Connection regulates the nervous system. Regaining control also means letting go of perfection. Perfection creates impossible standards. You accept good enough. This acceptance reduces pressure. Pressure fuels overwhelm. Another subtle but powerful step is grounding in values. You reconnect with what matters. Values provide direction when clarity is lost. Direction reduces confusion. Regaining control also requires patience. Overwhelm does not disappear instantly. It softens gradually. Expecting immediate relief creates frustration. Frustration adds pressure. Another essential step is noticing progress. Even small stabilization matters. You acknowledge moments of calm clarity or relief. Recognition reinforces recovery. What you notice grows. Regaining control also involves forgiving yourself for struggling. Overwhelm often carries shame. Shame deepens collapse. Forgiveness restores self-trust. Self-trust stabilizes the system. Another powerful shift is moving from self-criticism to self-guidance. Instead of attacking yourself, you guide yourself gently. What would help right now? What is the next small step? Guidance calms. Criticism overwhelms. Regaining control also means accepting uncertainty. Overwhelm often comes from wanting certainty where none exists. You practice staying present without answers. Tolerance of uncertainty is strength. Another important practice is releasing comparison. Comparing your state to others intensifies overwhelm. You refocus on your own process. Your path is yours. Regaining control also involves allowing emotion to move. Tears, anger, sadness are not problems. They are releases. Suppressing them keeps overwhelm locked in. Expression frees capacity. Another aspect is reconnecting with the body. Movement, even gentle movement, discharges stress. The body releases what the mind cannot. Movement restores flow. Regaining control also means trusting that capacity returns. Overwhelm makes you doubt your strength. Strength is not gone. It is temporarily inaccessible. Access returns with regulation. Another essential step is setting one boundary. You say no to something small. This restores agency. Agency reduces overwhelm. Control begins with choice. Regaining control also includes reframing overwhelm as a signal. It tells you something needs attention, rest, or change. Signals are helpful. Listening reduces intensity. Overwhelm also lessens when you reconnect with meaning. Even small meaning like caring for yourself or showing up gently gives purpose. Purpose stabilizes. As you practice these steps, you will notice that overwhelm no longer feels absolute. It becomes something you move through rather than something that defines you. This is control returning, not through force, but through regulation, clarity, and compassion. In the next part, you will learn how to maintain mental strength during loss, failure, and uncertainty. You will learn how to stay intact even when life removes what you relied on. This is where resilience deepens, and where your mind becomes harder to break. Loss, failure, and uncertainty are not occasional visitors in life. They are permanent features of it. Anyone who lives fully will encounter moments where something meaningful is taken. A way where effort does not lead to reward, and where the future becomes unclear. Mental strength is not built by avoiding these moments. It is built by learning how to remain intact while moving through them. Loss changes the inner landscape immediately. Whether it is the loss of a relationship, opportunity, health identity, or expectation, it creates a sudden emptiness. The mind reacts by trying to fill that emptiness with meaning. If meaning is not guided wisely, the mind turns against itself. This is where many people break. The untrained mind treats loss as evidence. Evidence that something is wrong, that nothing is stable, or that effort is pointless. It searches the past for mistakes and the future for reassurance. Neither can be found. Mental strength begins with understanding this truth. Loss is not proof. It is an event. Events do not define worth. When loss occurs, the nervous system enters a state of alert. Familiar structure disappears. The body feels unsafe. The mind tries to regain control by replaying what happened and imagining what could have been done differently. This replay feels necessary, but it often traps you. Replaying does not restore what was lost. It only drains energy. Mental strength during loss involves allowing grief without collapsing into identity. Grief is a natural response to loss. It deserves space. But grief does not get to define who you are. You feel grief. You do not become it. This distinction protects your core. Failure challenges self-image. It confronts expectations and exposes vulnerability. The mind often interprets failure as inadequacy. This interpretation hurts more than the failure itself. Failure is feedback, not a verdict. Mental strength requires separating outcome from identity. You can fail at something without being a failure. This separation prevents collapse. Uncertainty is often the most difficult. Loss and failure at least have shape. Uncertainty has none. It leaves the mind without reference points. The untrained mind panics. It demands clarity, timelines, and guarantees. Life offers none. Mental strength is the ability to function without certainty. It is the ability to stay present while not knowing. This tolerance is not natural. It is trained. The mind wants closure. Closure feels like safety. But forcing closure creates false certainty. False certainty creates poor decisions. Mental strength allows open questions to exist. Another key aspect of mental strength is emotional regulation. Loss, failure, and uncertainty trigger strong emotions. Sadness, anger, fear, regret, and shame may appear together. The untrained mind either suppresses these emotions or acts them out. Mental strength contains emotion. Containment means emotion can move without controlling behavior. Mental strength also involves pacing. During difficult times, people often push themselves to return to normal quickly. This pressure backfires. Healing requires time. Strength includes patience. Patience prevents secondary damage. Another critical element is meaning-making. Loss and failure create a vacuum of meaning. If you do not consciously choose, meaning the mind fills the vacuum with hopelessness, meaning does not have to be positive immediately. It can simply be honest. This is painful, and I am learning to carry it. Honest meaning stabilizes. Mental strength also requires community. Isolation intensifies suffering. Sharing loss does not weaken you. It distributes load. Even quiet presence helps regulate the nervous system. Strength grows in connection. Another important practice is grounding in routine. When life feels unstable, routine provides structure. Simple daily actions anchor you. Structure supports resilience. Mental strength also involves accepting changed identity. Loss and failure often change who you are. Resisting this change increases suffering. Accepting it allows adaptation. Adaptation is strength. Another key is limiting rumination. Rumination feels productive but produces nothing. You gently interrupt loops by grounding attention in the present. Presence reduces mental noise. Mental strength also includes self-compassion. Harsh self-judgment compounds pain. Compassion allows recovery. Recovery restores capacity. Another essential skill is recognizing what you can control. Loss removes many things. Focusing on what remains within control restores agency. Agency rebuilds confidence. Mental strength also involves reframing uncertainty as space rather than threat. Uncertainty is uncomfortable, but it also allows new possibilities. Possibility exists only where certainty ends. Another important aspect is honoring emotion without dramatizing it. You allow yourself to feel deeply without turning pain into a narrative of ruin. Narratives shape experience. Mental strength also grows through reflective learning. You ask what this experience is teaching without demanding immediate answers. Learning creates meaning over time. Another powerful element is patience with yourself. Healing and rebuilding are not linear. Some days will feel strong, others fragile. Both are part of the process. Fluctuation is normal. Mental strength also involves maintaining hope without fantasy. Hope is belief in movement, not certainty of outcome. Movement sustains effort. Another aspect is protecting your future self. Decisions made in pain often create long-term consequences. Mental strength pauses before acting. Pausing preserves options. Mental strength also includes letting go of blame. Blame, whether directed outward or inward, keeps you stuck in the past. Release restores focus. Another key is resilience-building habits. Sleep, nourishment, movement, and rest matter more during loss than ever. These are not luxuries. They are foundations. Mental strength also involves redefining success. During loss, success may simply be getting through the day with integrity. Integrity builds self-respect. Self-respect stabilizes the mind. Another subtle but powerful practice is gratitude for what remains. Gratitude does not erase pain. It balances perspective. Balance prevents collapse. Mental strength also requires acknowledging that some answers come later. You do not rush resolution. You allow understanding to unfold. Time reveals clarity. As mental strength grows, loss, failure, and uncertainty no longer feel like threats to survival. They become challenges to be navigated. You remain intact. In the next part, you will learn how to train emotional control in your darkest moments. You will learn how to stabilize yourself when pain feels heaviest. This is where resilience becomes skill, and where strength becomes dependable. Dark moments are different from stressful ones. Stress still carries movement. Dark moments feel heavy still and isolating. Motivation drops. Energy fades. Hope feels distant. In these moments, emotional control is not about performance or positivity. It is about survival with dignity. Most people believe emotional control means staying strong and unshaken. In dark moments, this belief becomes a burden. It creates pressure to feel better quickly. That pressure deepens despair. True emotional control in darkness is gentle, deliberate, and slow. The first truth to understand is this: dark moments are not problems to be solved. They are states to be stabilized. When you treat darkness as something to eliminate, you fight yourself. When you treat it as something to move through, you regain control. Control begins with permission. You give yourself permission to be where you are without judgment. Judgment adds a second layer of pain. The pain of feeling bad, and the pain of believing you should not feel bad. Removing. Judgment lightens the load immediately. Training emotional control starts with regulating the body. In dark moments, the body often feels heavy, frozen, or numb. You do not force energy. You focus on gentle regulation. Slow breathing, grounding touch, warmth, and stillness. Safety comes before motivation. When the body feels slightly safer, the mind becomes less hostile. Another critical step is narrowing focus dramatically. Darkness feels overwhelming because the mind looks at everything at once. You reduce your focus to the next hour, or even the next minute. You ask, what is the smallest thing I can do to support myself right now? Small actions restore. Agency reduces helplessness. Training. Emotional control also means learning to sit with emotion without interrogation. You stop asking, why am I like this? Or when will this end? These questions create pressure. Instead, you notice what is present. This is sadness. This is exhaustion. This is fear. Naming without analysis calms the mind. Another important practice is maintaining connection even when you feel like withdrawing. Darkness tells you to isolate. Isolation deepens pain. You do not need to explain everything. You only need presence. Presence regulates the nervous system. Training emotional control also involves protecting yourself from harsh inner dialogue. In dark moments, the inner voice becomes cruel. You intervene not by arguing, but by softening tone. You speak to yourself as you would to someone you care about. Tone matters more than words. Another critical skill is pacing expectations. You do not expect productivity, clarity, or optimism. You expect honesty, rest, and small movement. This realistic pacing prevents burnout. Burnout deepens darkness. Training emotional control. This also means allowing emotion to move physically. Tears, shaking, sighs, or stillness are releases. You do not suppress them. Suppression traps emotion. Release creates space. Another important aspect is grounding in sensory reality. Darkness pulls attention inward. You gently anchor to external sensation, light, sound, texture, temperature. This brings the mind out of loops. Loops intensify suffering. Training emotional control also involves limiting rumination. Rumination feeds darkness. You notice when thoughts repeat and gently redirect attention to something grounding. Redirection is not avoidance. It is containment. Another powerful practice is self-reassurance. Darkness creates fear of permanence. You remind yourself, this is a state, not an identity. It will change even if you cannot feel that now. This reassurance stabilizes. Training emotional control also requires compassion for fluctuation. Some moments will feel heavier than others. You do not demand consistency. You allow waves. Resistance amplifies waves. Another important element is maintaining basic self-care. Eating, sleeping, hydration, and hygiene may feel insignificant, but they support regulation. Neglecting basics worsens darkness. Basics are anchors. Training emotional control also includes accepting support. Support does not mean fixing. It means not carrying everything alone. Carrying alone increases weight. Another critical skill is reducing decision load. Darkness drains cognitive energy. You simplify choices. You create routines to reduce mental effort. Simplicity restores capacity. Training emotional control also involves understanding that darkness often carries messages. Not immediate solutions, but signals of unmet needs, exhaustion, or unresolved pain. Listening gently reveals direction. Another important practice is avoiding destructive coping. Substances, distraction, or impulsive decisions promise relief, but create damage. Emotional control chooses preservation over escape. Preservation protects future self. Training emotional control also requires patience with recovery. Darkness does not lift on command. Forcing light creates pressure. Gentle persistence allows natural movement. Movement is slow, but real. Another key is remembering past recovery. You have moved through dark moments before, even if they felt endless at the time. Memory of survival builds hope. Hope does not need certainty. Training emotional control also involves limiting exposure to negativity. News, social comparison, and conflict deepen darkness. You choose protective boundaries. Boundaries preserve energy. Another powerful shift is focusing on values rather than feelings. You may not feel motivated, but you can still act in alignment. Small acts of integrity create stability. Integrity anchors identity. Training emotional control also includes recognizing when professional support is needed. Seeking help is strength, not failure. Support expands capacity. Another subtle but important practice is gratitude for small neutral moments. You do not force positivity. You notice moments without pain. Neutrality is relief. Relief accumulates. Training emotional control also means trusting time. Time does not heal automatically, but it allows integration. You give yourself time. Time softens edges. As you train emotional control in dark moments, you will notice a shift. Darkness no longer feels like annihilation. It feels heavy, but survivable. Survivable changes everything. You stop fearing your own inner states. This fearlessness reduces suffering. In the next part, you will learn how to rebuild confidence after being broken. You will learn how to trust yourself again and reclaim inner strength. This is where rebuilding begins and where the story changes direction. Confidence after hardship is not the same as confidence before it. Before life breaks you, confidence often comes from certainty, momentum, or external success. After being broken, confidence must be rebuilt from something deeper. It must come from self-trust rather than circumstances. This kind of confidence is quieter, but stronger. When life breaks you, it often damages trust in yourself. You may question your judgment, resilience, or ability to cope. You wonder how you ended up here and whether you can prevent it from happening again. This doubt is natural, but it does not mean you are weak. It means your inner foundation was shaken. Rebuilding confidence begins with acknowledging what you survived. Not what you lost, not what went wrong, but what you endured. Survival itself is evidence of strength, even if it does not feel heroic. You are still here. This matters. The next step is reframing what being broken means. Being broken does not mean destroyed. It means cracked open. It means old structures failed because they could no longer support the weight you were carrying. Collapse was not failure. It was a signal for change. Reframing removes shame. Shame erodes confidence faster than any event. When you believe your pain defines you, rebuilding feels impossible. When you see pain as part of growth, rebuilding becomes natural. Rebuilding confidence also requires patience. You cannot rush trust. Trust is rebuilt through consistent small experiences of reliability. You do not try to feel confident. You act in small ways that prove to yourself you can be trusted again. Action precedes feeling. You start with small promises to yourself. Simple routines. Showing up when you say you will. Taking care of your body. Following through on manageable commitments. Each fulfilled promise restores a piece of trust. Trust accumulates. Another important step is redefining success. After being broken, success may simply mean stability, honesty, or self-respect. You let go of external measures temporarily. You focus on alignment. Alignment rebuilds identity. Rebuilding confidence also means forgiving past versions of yourself. The version that pushed too hard, ignored signs, or made choices that led here. Blame keeps you stuck in the past. Forgiveness frees energy for rebuilding. Forgiveness is not denial. It is release. Another critical aspect is allowing vulnerability without collapsing. Confidence is not pretending you are unshaken. It is knowing you can be honest about struggle and still move forward. Honesty strengthens self-trust. Rebuilding confidence also involves learning from what happened without turning learning into self-attack. You extract lessons calmly. What did I need that I ignored? What boundaries were missing? What signals did I miss? Learning creates competence. Competence builds confidence. Another important step is regulating comparison. After being broken, you may compare your current state to your past self or others. This comparison creates pressure. You shift comparison to progress rather than position. Progress is measurable. Position is misleading. Rebuilding confidence also requires reconnecting with values. Values remain even when circumstances change. Acting in alignment with values restores a sense of self that is not dependent on outcomes. Values stabilize identity. Another key element is physical grounding. Confidence is not just mental, it is embodied. Standing upright, moving regularly, and caring for your body sends signals of strength to the nervous system. The body teaches the mind. Rebuilding confidence also means tolerating discomfort. Growth feels uncomfortable. Avoiding discomfort delays confidence. You allow yourself to feel awkward, uncertain, and imperfect while moving forward. Discomfort is the bridge. Another critical practice is celebrating resilience, not perfection. You acknowledge effort, not just success. This recognition reinforces inner strength. What you recognize grows. Rebuilding confidence also includes seeking support without shame. Confidence does not mean doing everything alone. It means knowing when to ask for help. Interdependence is strength. Another important step is trusting intuition again. After being broken, intuition may feel unreliable. You start by trusting it in small decisions. You listen gently. Listening rebuilds trust. Rebuilding confidence also means creating a new narrative. Not a dramatic one, a truthful one. I was overwhelmed, I learned, I adjusted, and I am rebuilding. Narratives shape identity. Another key aspect is consistency. Confidence grows through repetition. Each day you show up even imperfectly, you strengthen self-belief. Consistency compounds. Rebuilding confidence also involves releasing the fear of being broken again. Fear keeps you guarded. You cannot guarantee life will not challenge you again, but you can trust your capacity to respond. Capacity reduces fear. Another important practice is setting realistic goals. Overreaching creates failure. Realistic goals create momentum. Momentum fuels confidence. Rebuilding confidence also requires emotional regulation. Confidence cannot grow in constant anxiety. You continue practicing calm, grounding, and self-reassurance. Regulation is foundation. Another subtle but powerful shift is gratitude for growth. You may not be grateful for the pain, but you can be grateful for what it revealed. Awareness is a gift. Rebuilding confidence also includes protecting boundaries. You no longer tolerate what drains you unnecessarily. Boundaries preserve energy. Energy sustains confidence. Another key is self-respect. You treat yourself with respect even when unsure. Self-respect creates internal stability. Stability builds confidence. Rebuilding confidence also involves allowing joy without guilt. After hardship, joy may feel undeserved. You allow it anyway. Joy heals. Another important step is accepting that confidence may look different now. It may be quieter, more measured, and less performative. Quiet confidence is durable. As confidence rebuilds, you begin to notice something important. You trust yourself more, not because life is easier, but because you are wiser. Wisdom replaces innocence. Rebuilding confidence after being broken is not about returning to who you were. It is about becoming someone more grounded, someone who knows their limits, someone who respects their needs, someone who can carry life without losing themselves. In the next part, you will learn how to become mentally unbreakable over time. You will learn how to strengthen your inner system so pressure no longer overwhelms you. This is where resilience becomes permanent, and where strength becomes your baseline. Becoming mentally unbreakable does not mean life will stop testing you. It means that tests no longer threaten your inner foundation. You may bend. You may feel pain. You may struggle at times, but you do not shatter. You recover faster, adapt wiser, and remain whole, even when circumstances are harsh. Mental unbreakability is not toughness in the traditional sense. It is not emotional numbness or constant positivity. It is flexibility, strength, and deep internal stability. It's built gradually over time. Most people think unbreakable means never falling apart. In reality, unbreakable means knowing how to put yourself back together without losing who you are. Mental unbreakability begins with a shift in relationship to adversity. You stop seeing hardship as proof of inadequacy and start seeing it as a training ground. Life is not testing you to destroy you. It is revealing where reinforcement is needed. Pressure exposes structure. Weak structures collapse under pressure. Flexible structures adapt. Becoming mentally unbreakable requires building flexibility rather than rigidity. Rigid minds demand certainty, comfort, and control. When these are removed, collapse occurs. Flexible minds adjust expectations, reinterpret meaning, and adapt behavior. Flexibility survives, where rigidity breaks. The first foundation of mental unbreakability is nervous system regulation. A dysregulated nervous system makes even minor stressors feel overwhelming. An unbreakable mind is built on a regulated body. This means consistent attention to sleep, nourishment, movement, and recovery. These are not optional luxuries. They are the physical infrastructure of resilience. You cannot think your way into unbreakability while ignoring your body. The second foundation is emotional literacy. You learn to recognize emotions accurately and early. Instead of being overwhelmed by a vague sense of distress, you can name what is happening. Fear, sadness, frustration, grief, exhaustion. Naming reduces intensity. When emotions are named, they become workable. When they are vague, they feel infinite. Mental unbreakability also requires emotional processing. Emotion that is not processed becomes stored tension. Stored tension weakens resilience. Processing does not mean reliving pain endlessly. It means allowing emotion to move through without resistance. Emotion moves. When it is allowed, resistance hardens it. The third foundation is cognitive flexibility. Unbreakable minds do not cling to a single interpretation. They can hold multiple perspectives. They understand that how you interpret events shapes how deeply they affect you. Interpretation is power. You learn to separate events from meaning. An event happens. Meaning is assigned. You gain skill in choosing meanings that are honest but not destructive. This does not mean denial. It means balance. Another key element is identity grounding. Many people break when identity is tied to roles, outcomes, or external stability. Mental unbreakability comes from grounding identity internally. You are not your job. You are not your productivity. You are not your worst moment. When identity is flexible, loss hurts, but does not erase you. Becoming mentally unbreakable also requires boundaries. Without boundaries, emotional load accumulates. You learn when to engage and when to disengage. You stop absorbing chaos that does not belong to you. Boundaries. Protect capacity. Capacity sustains resilience. Another critical element is self-trust. Self-trust is built through consistent alignment between values and behavior. Each time you act in integrity, even under pressure, you reinforce trust. Trust stabilizes the mind. Mental. Breakability also involves acceptance of impermanence. Everything changes. Relationships, phases, health, and certainty shift. Fighting impermanence creates suffering. Acceptance reduces. Fear. Fear is what makes people break. Another powerful pillar is tolerance of uncertainty. Unbreakable minds can function without knowing outcomes. They focus on effort, values, and adaptability rather than guarantees. Uncertainty is not a threat. It is a condition of life. The next element is meaning-making. Meaning does not remove pain, but it makes pain survivable. Unbreakable minds actively engage in meaning-making without forcing positivity. This is difficult, and I am growing. This hurts, and it is shaping me, meaning anchors experience. Another essential component is self-compassion. Harsh self-judgment weakens resilience. Compassion allows learning and recovery. Unbreakable minds do not abandon themselves under pressure. Self-reliance is strength. Mental unbreakability also requires managing inner dialogue. The tone you use internally matters more than the content. A calm, guiding voice stabilizes. A harsh, critical voice destabilizes. You become your own regulator. Another critical aspect is exposure to challenge. Resilience is built through manageable stress, not avoidance. You gradually expose yourself to discomfort while practicing regulation. This builds confidence. Confidence reduces fear. Mental unbreakability also involves reducing dependency on external validation. When your worth depends on others' opinions, you are vulnerable. Internal validation creates stability. You trust your own assessment. Another key pillar is adaptability. Life will require you to pivot. Unbreakable minds release outdated goals, identities, or plans when they no longer fit. Clinging creates suffering. Letting go preserves energy. Mental unbreakability also includes realistic optimism. Not blind positivity, but belief in movement. You trust that effort leads somewhere, even if the destination changes. Hope sustains effort. Another critical element is emotional recovery speed. You will still be affected by life. Unbreakable minds recover faster. They do not stay down longer than necessary. Recovery speed matters more than avoidance. Mental unbreakability also requires maintaining curiosity. Curiosity keeps the mind open rather than defensive. You ask, "What is this teaching?" rather than "Why is this happening to me?" Curiosity reduces threat. Another powerful practice is gratitude for resilience. You acknowledge how far you have come. You recognize survival and adaptation. Recognition reinforces strength. Mental unbreakability also means managing expectations. Unrealistic expectations create disappointment. Realistic expectations create preparedness. Prepared minds break less. Another essential aspect is community. You do not need many people. You need safe connection. Connection regulates the nervous system and distributes emotional load. Isolation weakens resilience. Mental unbreakability also includes learning to rest without guilt. Rest is not avoidance. It is maintenance. Machines break when never shut down. Minds are no different. Rest restores function. Another key pillar is purpose. Purpose does not have to be grand. It can be values-based. Caring, creating, learning, contributing. Purpose gives direction during difficulty. Direction stabilizes effort. Mental unbreakability also involves forgiveness. Holding resentment drains energy. Forgiveness frees capacity. Capacity sustains resilience. Another important element is embodiment. You inhabit your body fully. Grounded posture, steady breath, and physical presence communicate safety to the nervous system. The body leads the mind. Mental unbreakability also requires honesty. You do not minimize pain or exaggerate strength. You see reality clearly. Clarity prevents collapse. Denial weakens structure. Another critical aspect is humility. You accept that you will struggle sometimes. This acceptance prevents shock when difficulty arises. Preparedness reduces panic. Mental unbreakability. It also includes practicing perspective. You zoom out during hardship. You remember that this is one chapter, not the whole story. Perspective softens. Intensity. Another pillar is emotional sovereignty. You take responsibility for your inner state without blaming yourself. You regulate rather than react. Regulation is power. Mental unbreakability also involves maintaining boundaries with thoughts. You observe thoughts rather than obeying them. This detachment prevents spirals. Thoughts are events, not commands. Another essential aspect is resilience rituals. Daily practices that ground you regardless of mood. These rituals create stability. Stability builds strength. Mental unbreakability also includes courage to change. Sometimes life breaks you because something must change. Courage allows transformation rather than repetition. Change restores alignment. Another key element is patience with growth. Unbreakability is built slowly. Expecting instant mastery creates frustration. Consistency builds capacity. Mental unbreakability also involves honoring your limits. Limits are not weaknesses. They are signals for sustainability. Sustainability prevents collapse. Another powerful shift is redefining strength. Strength is not endurance at all costs. It is wise endurance. Wisdom preserves life force. Mental unbreakability also includes integrating past pain. Pain becomes part of your story, not your identity. Integration creates depth. Depth creates stability. Another important aspect is choosing courage repeatedly. Courage does not eliminate fear. It acts alongside it. Action reduces fear over time. Mental unbreakability also means trusting yourself with your own pain. You no longer fear inner states. This trust reduces suffering. Fear of pain is worse than pain. Mental unbreakability also requires letting go of control where it is impossible. You focus on what you can influence. Influence restores agency. Another essential pillar is self-respect. You treat yourself with dignity even when struggling. Self-respect strengthens identity. Identity stabilizes the mind. Mental unbreakability also includes adaptability of goals. You adjust goals based on reality without abandoning ambition. Adaptation sustains momentum. Living with strength, clarity, and inner control is not a destination you reach and stay at forever. It is a way of relating to life that you practice daily. After everything you have learned and endured, the goal is no longer to avoid hardship or eliminate pain. The goal is to live in a way where life no longer owns your inner world. This is the quiet power that changes everything. Strength at this stage does not look like force. It looks like steadiness. It looks like knowing who you are, even when circumstances shift. It looks like responding rather than reacting, choosing rather than panicking, and remaining aligned, even when things are difficult. Clarity comes from reduced inner noise. When the mind is no longer constantly fighting itself, energy returns. Thoughts become simpler, more direct, and less dramatic. You no longer need to analyze everything endlessly. You see what matters and what does not. Inner control does not mean controlling life. It means controlling how life moves through you. Living this way begins with a grounded identity. You no longer define yourself by what happens to you. You define yourself by how you respond. This shift is subtle but profound. It moves your center of gravity inward. When your center is internal, external events lose power. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "How do I want to meet this?" This question places you back in the position of agency. Agency restores dignity. Living with inner control also means you stop chasing constant certainty. You accept that uncertainty is part of being alive. Instead of demanding guarantees, you develop adaptability. Adaptability is stronger than certainty. When things change, you adjust. When plans fall apart, you regroup. When emotions rise, you regulate. You do not collapse because flexibility is built into your system. Strength also means emotional honesty. You no longer pretend to be fine when you are not. You acknowledge emotion without dramatizing it. You feel sadness without turning it into despair. You feel anger without letting it control behavior. This emotional honesty prevents buildup. Clarity also means understanding your limits. You no longer push endlessly out of fear of falling behind. You recognize when rest is required, when boundaries are needed, and when something must change. Respecting limits is strength. Inner control also changes how you relate to thoughts. Thoughts still appear. Doubts still arise. But you no longer treat them as commands. You see them as mental events passing through awareness. This detachment creates freedom. You no longer need to silence the mind. You simply stop obeying every thought it produces. Living with strength, clarity, and inner control also means you become intentional with energy. You choose where to invest it. You stop engaging in unnecessary conflict. You step away from environments that drain you. Energy management becomes a priority. Clarity sharpens priorities. You begin to notice that much of what once felt urgent was not actually important. You slow down without falling behind. You move deliberately instead of frantically. Deliberate living reduces regret. Inner control also transforms relationships. You stop seeking validation to feel stable. You connect from wholeness rather than need. This changes the dynamic immediately. You listen more deeply. You react less defensively. You set boundaries without guilt. Healthy relationships require inner stability. Strength also shows up as consistency. You do not need dramatic motivation swings. You show up steadily. Some days with energy, some days with patience, but always with integrity. Integrity becomes your anchor. Clarity also means aligning actions with values. When values guide decisions, confusion fades. You may not know exactly how things will unfold, but you know how you want to behave. Behavior guided by values builds self-respect. Self-respect stabilizes the mind. Living with inner control also means you stop catastrophizing. When challenges appear, you do not immediately jump to worst-case scenarios. You assess calmly and take the next reasonable step. Small steps create momentum. Momentum reduces fear. Strength also includes compassion for yourself. You no longer punish yourself for struggling. You recognize effort even when outcomes are imperfect. Compassion accelerates recovery. Clarity also improves decision-making. You stop overthinking simple choices. You trust yourself. You accept that some decisions will be wrong and that you can adapt. Trust reduces paralysis. Inner control also means emotional recovery becomes faster. You still feel impacted by life, but you do not stay stuck. You process and move forward. Recovery speed matters more than never falling. Living with strength, clarity, and inner control also requires ongoing practice. This is not something you achieve once. It is something you reinforce through daily choices. You regulate when stressed. You pause when reactive. You reflect when confused. These practices compound. Strength also means knowing when to seek support. Independence does not mean isolation. Inner control includes recognizing when outside help strengthens you. Support is strategic. Clarity also involves honesty about what no longer works. You stop forcing yourself into roles, expectations, or paths that drain you. You give yourself permission to evolve. Evolution prevents stagnation. Inner control also shifts how you experience failure. Failure becomes feedback rather than identity. You learn, adjust, and continue. Continuation is strength. Living this way also deepens gratitude. When the mind is calmer, you notice more. You appreciate moments of peace, connection, and simple presence. Gratitude grounds awareness. Strength also shows up in patience. You stop rushing your own growth. You allow yourself to unfold. Growth that is rushed becomes brittle. Clarity also allows you to see patterns. You recognize what triggers you, what supports you, and what depletes you. This awareness allows proactive choices. Proactivity prevents collapse. Inner control also includes accepting that some pain cannot be fixed immediately. You carry it with dignity rather than desperation. Dignity preserves self-worth. Living with strength, clarity, and inner control also means you are no longer afraid of yourself. You trust that you can handle inner states, even the difficult ones. This trust dissolves fear. Fearlessness here does not mean absence of fear. It means fear no longer runs the show. Strength also includes humility. You accept that life will continue to surprise, challenge, and humble you. This acceptance prevents arrogance and prepares you for reality. Prepared minds break less. Clarity also improves focus. You stop scattering attention. You invest in what matters. Focus simplifies life. Simplicity reduces stress. Inner control also means you respond to pressure with grounding rather than panic. Pressure becomes information rather than threat. Information empowers. Living this way also changes how you experience success. Success does not inflate you. You enjoy it without becoming dependent on it. Detachment preserves balance. Strength also means maintaining boundaries with time. You protect rest, reflection, and stillness. You understand that constant stimulation weakens clarity. Stillness restores depth. Clarity also allows you to release resentment. You stop carrying old anger that drains energy. Release frees capacity. Capacity fuels life. Inner control also means you stop replaying the past endlessly. You learn from it and let it go. Release creates space. Living with strength, clarity, and inner control also makes you a stabilizing presence for others. People feel calmer around you. You do not absorb chaos. You contain it. Containment is leadership. Strength also includes courage. You make difficult choices when necessary. You face discomfort rather than avoiding it. Courage expands capacity. Clarity also helps you simplify identity. You are no longer trying to be everything. You are simply being yourself. Authenticity stabilizes the mind. Inner control also involves letting go of perfection. You accept imperfection as part of being human. Acceptance reduces pressure. Living this way does not mean life becomes easy. It means life becomes manageable, meaningful, and grounded. You still experience loss. You still face uncertainty. You still feel emotion. But you remain intact. Strength, clarity, and inner control mean that no matter what happens, you do not abandon yourself. This is the ultimate form of resilience. Not the absence of struggle, but the presence of self-leadership through it. You are no longer at the mercy of circumstances. You are no longer controlled by fear. You are no longer broken by pressure. You live from within, and from that place life may challenge you, but it will not break you.